Welcome to The Being Guide, the lifestyle podcast that celebrates diversity of thought on all things health, wellness, and being. I'm your host, Charlotte Horn. Join me as I indulge my curiosity through candid conversations about health and life, with people who represent a whole spectrum of ideologies on what it means to be well. I'll be finding out what being means to each of them as they generously share their stories and leave us with insights that can be applied in the context of our everyday lives. Together, we seek to make sense of the paradoxes, raise awareness of the resources, and normalize conversations about the things that we are all thinking and feeling. It's not a one-size-fits-all, so take what you need and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of The Being Guide. I am very excited to be here today, and even more so to be joined by my inaugural guest, the wonderful polyvagal-informed holistic therapist, Michelle Sacchetti. Now, Mish and I first met in the workplace, where she held the pivotal role as our office's physical therapist. However, our weekly meetings turned into more than just a reprieve for my stiff neck as I learned more about Michelle and the many strings to her bow. With a particular interest in the role that stress plays on the mind, body, and nervous system, Michelle has honed her craft around helping others achieve their potential by harnessing the body's innate healing intelligence. She offers workshops which support clients to understand their emotional roadmaps and that help them get to know and reshape their nervous systems. She also offers supplementary therapeutic services such as focusing, lymphatic drainage, and reiki. In addition to her work, Michelle has been a constant source of knowledge and inspiration for me personally in my health and well-being journey, and I'm thrilled that she's agreed to be my guinea pig so that she can share some of her wisdom with you all too. Today we'll be delving into a psychotherapeutic process called focusing, a modality which provides a framework for us to be able to listen to our body's inner knowing and ultimately live a more authentic life. Focusing also serves as a useful tool to help us navigate times of uncertainty and better manage the highs and lows of life, which it's fair to say we've had our fair share of recently. So without further ado, Michelle Sacchetti, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Charlotte.
Oh, you are so very welcome. It's been quite a week in Melbourne, hasn't it? It's probably worth actually just recapping that, because by the time that this goes out, a few weeks will have passed, but just sort of acknowledge what has been going on. So we started the week with our roadmap out of lockdown being announced by our Premier, Dan Andrews, which it's long awaited. We've spent the best part of the last 18 months in lockdown, so that's pretty exciting. However, there were some protests in the days that followed, and then also hit with a 5.9 magnitude earthquake, which left us all feeling rather unsettled, I think it's pretty safe to say. But also, it was your birthday.
A roller coaster of emotions, that's for sure.
I know. How did you go? How was the birthday? How are you feeling after everything that's gone on this week?
Well, it's been quite a full-on week, and trying to be with the range of emotions. I suppose, this is the challenge really for all of us. What do we do when there are so many things going on that, might create a sense of discomfort within us? And how do we be with that? And how do we allow our emotions to be here when all the good stuff is here as well, So it's really been a bit of a mixed bag.
And better than most the impact that this can have on our nervous systems and the kind of impacts that then has on other parts of our life. But yeah, glad that you've kind of fared okay and we've made it through one of the most challenging weeks of the last 18 months, I think it's fair to say. So Michelle, I might just get you to give a little bit of an introduction as to who you are, your journey, and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So I refer to myself as a holistic therapist, and I think that probably best describes my approach to well-being with clients. I started my journey almost 20 years ago, and before that, a huge catalyst for me was, dealing with my own health issues. In my early 20s, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue and was told that there was really going to be nothing I could do to help myself, and I would be essentially debilitated for 18 months. And I don't know, something inside me didn't agree with that. And So I started looking into natural therapies as a way to help myself. And, you know, I was able to repair my body and, you know, my being, you know, fairly quickly through Chinese medicine. And that made me really interested in health and the human condition. And so I spent some years casually researching that and, you know, meditation and yoga and Tai Chi. And, you know, I was working in a corporate job. I didn't really feel that my life had much meaning or purpose. And, you know, that's one of the things that really drives me as a human being. So I decided that, you know, I would like to do some study in health. And, you know, I've had a career in wellness for almost 20 years. And in that time, I've, you know, looked at different modalities. I started off as a physical therapist. I still do work as a physical therapist because I recognise that touch is such an important element, especially now, given that, you know, many of us are disconnected from one another, and touch is quite important. You know, I've gone on to study, you know, psychotherapy, which is where I found focusing, which is a somatic therapy and a way of being able to, I suppose, get to know yourself and get to know yourself on a deeper level and understand that there is an innate wisdom that lives inside each of us.
Let's just pick up on focusing. Now, I had not heard of focusing until you kind of brought it into my world. And I'm fascinated to delve a little bit deeper into it with you today. So maybe let's just start with the basics. So what is this somatic modality and how can it benefit us?
Yeah, so focusing is a very gentle way of tuning in and listening to your body. And it's like, you know, our body's like a house. It stores our emotions, our past experiences, any traumas we may have had, and also our hopes and dreams. So it's like our body has a story to tell us, and it's really waiting for us to come into relationship with it and listen. And focusing is a way of approaching our body that is a gentle way that isn't overwhelming, because, you know, it can be fairly scary to think, oh, my body wants to let me know something, or even feeling sensations that might come from the body may instill a little bit of fear in people. But focusing is a really gentle way. It's almost like paying inward attention to what your body would like you to hear and just following that moment to moment. So it's about cultivating presence and just going slow and just leaning in a way that feels safe so that your body can start a dialogue. And you can start dialoguing with your body. And it's around learning how to do that.
And so why might we want to learn how to do that?
So let's say that, you know, you'd like to make a decision and you keep going back and forth in your head and you're not sure about how to move forward. Well, we invite the whole body to be part of this process. And there's something within the body called the felt sense, which is like your intuition or like your gut instinct. And it's really about inviting this to be here and to be part of the process. And sometimes our body has information for us that we cannot arrive with through the mind. And so we invite this to be here and we gently lean in and listen. And sometimes it can be a little bit vague at first. We might have a sense of something here or, you know, knowing the right way, but being unsure about how to proceed. Well, it's around listening to that and just waiting for the body's information to start telling you things.
Okay. And what sort of things could our body be telling us?
So, you know, your body could be letting you know that it might need you to slow down. It might need you to be a little bit patient. And a whole story might emerge around which might be the right path to take. Quite often, we push feelings down, we ignore them, and, quite often we know what the right way is, but, we let doubt creep in, or we may become unsure about things. And this is just a way of being able to hear the story that our body would like to tell us. And it's a way that we can deeply listen and we can engage our whole being to inform us as to what feels right and which way is the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you sort of, if we take a little bit of a step back, and so we sort of know broadly what focusing is, but where did it come from? Where did it originate from? Because as I said, it's something that I had previously had very little knowledge on. In fact, I had no knowledge on it whatsoever. And it's something that's so valuable, and something that, we kind of know that on some level we need to bring our mind and body into relationship with one another. And I think, as much as we know this, there's not often the process or the framework that kind of allows us to actually bring this into actuality and actually, marry the two. So where's it come from? Who's kind of come up with all of this?
So the person who has put the process of focusing together, his name is Eugene Gendlin, and he was a student of Carl Rogers, who is the founder of person-centered psychotherapy. And Eugene was very curious as to why some people had better therapeutic outcomes than others. So he did, lots of research into the therapeutic process of different people. And he found that the people who had a better therapeutic outcome were people who could get in touch with like a gut instinct or a knowing that, came from somewhere. And this somewhere, was maybe informing them that something didn't feel right, or that there was something here that needed to be explored. So it's almost like having an embodied sense of curiosity and, wanting to lean in and find out a little bit more about what was here.
And why do you think it is that, it isn't more widely known, and why it sort of isn't being kind of done on a sort of quite mainstream basis? And yeah, because it's just, it's something that I think we could all benefit greatly from, is, living more in the present and doing more of the, this is going to sound paradoxical now, but doing more of the being rather than the doing. Because, we just are living in the fast lane a lot of the time, and we're stuck in this doing mode. And we actually very rarely take the time to just slow down and just be with ourselves. And focusing at what my experience with it anyway, and yours too, is that, having that framework in place to be able to slow down and listen is kind of more important now than ever. So I guess my question is, why do you think more people don't do it?
Well, I think in our culture, as you've said, we are going very fast. And, I think we live in a culture where we tend to override what we feel because we're either too busy or we don't have the time. And also we don't really know how to do that. And, because there is an unknown here, that can bring up some fear for people. What happens if we slow down? What happens if we find something out about ourselves that we don't like? Or if there's a big bad skeleton that's in the closet? What do we do with this? And so the process of focusing can really help people to slow down and learn a way of very gently leaning in and just providing like an empathetic ear to yourself.
Yeah.
And this can be a great way of being because it shows us how to be with ourselves, which is really so simple in many ways and also one of the hardest things that we can do.
No, absolutely. And I think just to your point, you know, if there are some skeletons lurking in the closet, then people are nervous, right? People are a little bit scared about what they might find if they do go within. And so, you know, we live in a world of abundance and distraction, and it's much easier to, you know, go and buy yourself something new, or, you know, well, maybe not so much at the moment because we're in lockdown, but, you know, go out and about and, you know, just fill the void with distraction and hedonism and all of these other things. But I guess the last 18 months, if nothing else, might have served as a bit of a catalyst for, you know, for further thought, because we haven't been able to have all of the distraction at our fingertips that we might previously have done. And so, you know, because I understand, right, it's scary to look inward, and it's scary sometimes if people have suffered a trauma or a past experience which has led them to behave in a certain way. And so how does, I guess, focusing differ in that? How does it help you approach those parts of you which you're a little bit reluctant to go to? How does focusing sort of differ, I guess, from other therapies as well, in terms of how you actually come to whatever that felt sense is?
Sure. So I suppose, you know, people might be reluctant to talk about a trauma because talking about it can re-traumatize people, and people don't really want to go down that path. So focusing is really about working through the body. And when we can be with what's here, and when we can, you know, gently lean in, and I've used this word lean in a lot. So what we're trying to do is approach what we might be feeling in our body when we think about a situation that might cause us a little bit of angst or discomfort. And generally, there might be a bodily felt sensation that comes with that. And what we want to do is we want to treat this bodily felt sensation like it's a shy animal. And so what we'll do is we approach it slowly, with patience, with interested curiosity, and with a degree of tenderness. And what we're really doing is just noticing what happens when we listen to this place. And as your focusing guide, I would get you to maybe start describing the sensation that you're feeling, and then reflect a little bit of that back to you. And then you'll notice what happens when you just listen and wait. And then it's like something in your body starts to shift and change. So what's uncomfortable may start to settle in your system, and a wave of relief may come because you've heard what's here. So rather than, you know, resisting, which can make something bigger or more intense, we're actually turning toward this place so it can be heard. And it's like something in the body lets go. And when we can find relief within our body, that also translates to finding relief and peace within our mind.
And what does this felt sense feel like? You know, how does it manifest in our bodies? Is it a thought that comes up? Is it a physical sensation? How does it show up in our bodies?
Well, it's different for everybody. So generally for people, it can come as a feeling in the body. And this feeling might be familiar. You might have felt it before, you know, when you think about a certain situation. It can come up as like an image if you're a visual person, or it can be, it can be a thought, but usually it is accompanied by something else, like, a feeling in the body or some type of memory or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be very vague at first. So we need to cultivate safety for the felt sense to then emerge and show itself, because it is like a shy animal.
Mm-hmm.
And, as much as we're scared of what might be here, it's also shy as well, and it wants to be witnessed and heard and seen in a particular way. And that's almost like, creating a type of intimacy with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I really like the analogy of the shy animal, because I feel like it's just a very different approach to kind of facing whatever's there. And it's, kind of, I guess, taking the pressure off. And I think so many people are probably afraid of going there because they're like, oh gosh, I've got to face this thing head on. And, we're told you've got to walk into the fire and you've got to get to the bottom of all of this and what's causing it and unpack it. And it can be very overwhelming. And, my personal experience with focusing as a focuser has, it's that slightly softer approach to finding out what's happening. And it's not overwhelming. And just the kind of the whole concept of approaching what's inside, like it is a shy animal and you don't want to scare it. You want to kind of go over and approach with caution and be like, okay, what's here? And okay, if it's not ready to come to the surface, then that's okay. But it's just kind of giving it the airtime that it deserves and the acknowledgement, and sort of being present with it. And I think that's, for me, what's been really impactful about focusing. But I guess something that I also experienced, and I think it's probably quite common when you're sort of new to focusing and, you're not too in touch with your felt sense and your body, and, you're still living very much in your head, was sometimes nothing comes up. And sometimes you're like, well, I'm here and I'm focusing and, and I'm not feeling anything. What does this mean? Am I dead inside? And, I think that's certainly something that I kind of came up against when I started focusing. Is that common, or am I just dead inside?
you are not dead inside, but me assure you, no one is.
Really good to know. Thank you for that reassurance.
So for some people, it is easier to feel something than others. And, it's like anything. It's, this is something that we can all do, but we've forgotten how. So it's about learning and relearning how to listen. So, that can take a little bit of practice and a little bit of time. And everyone is unique and individual. And it's about understanding that approach. What's the best approach to help someone, to guide them, to listen and to wait and to feel something. And, when people say, I feel nothing, maybe just be curious. Well, what does nothing feel like? And maybe start describing that and going into that, because, we're alive inside. There's a whole world that's waiting for us. And we all have a story that wants to be heard. And that story is different for everyone. And the way that that story wants to be heard and the way that that story wants to be told is unique to everybody as well. So it's just really learning about how to approach this.
It actually sounds, and I guess is to some degree, there are similarities with meditation and coming into kind of relationship with yourself in that way. Is it a type of meditation?
I think meditation is really about observing what's going on. Focusing is observing and coming into a relationship with what's going on. So it's almost like building a bridge and building a relationship with yourself, almost like the way that you would build a relationship with a friend or a partner. You know, you want to be curious about them. You might want to, you know, make an inquiry as to what they like, what they don't like, how they want you to be with them, how much space they might need, and what type of support they might need. So it's almost like building this rapport and relationship with yourself.
And what happens if we don't do this? If we don't come into a relationship with ourselves, if we sort of continue to live as is, acknowledging that, you know, on some level, everybody experiences some type of, I guess, dysregulation in our nervous systems and some kind of feelings of discomfort and dis-ease. Does the more that we just sort of push it to the side, does it exacerbate it? Or I guess, can you just live the rest of your life without kind of coming into relationship with yourself?
Well, from my personal experience and from what I'm seeing with clients is that, you know, life actually gets easier when you can come into relationship with yourself. You know, I'm going to go back to your body's like a house analogy. And, you know, for some people, they can go, and this is not a judgment by any means, but they can go a long time without really addressing anything emotionally or, you know, just stuffing things down. But I think there comes a time in all of our lives when we need to address what's here. And really focusing is one way of doing that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if we don't tend to our house, those rooms become really cluttered and it becomes difficult to move. And there's not a lot of space or capacity for anything else. And sometimes when the rooms are so clogged in our own house, we can block certain emotions and certain feelings because they might be difficult or uncomfortable or painful. So we think by pushing them away and, you know, stuffing them in the cupboards in our internal house that they go away. But actually, they can grow in intensity and they can actually block all of the other feelings, including the feelings that feel good. And we all want to feel good, right?
Yeah, I actually was doing some research the other day on a concept that Brené Brown actually has kind of brought to the surface called foreboding joy. And it speaks exactly to that, you know, the more that we sort of suppress or numb our sort of negative or, you know, more challenging emotions, you know, we're actually impeding our ability to feel the good emotions, you know, the joy, the fun, the excitement, and an inability to sort of regulate as well. So we're sort of always in this flux of, you know, really good highs and then too much, you know, and we don't know how to experience joy and happiness in its fullest capacity because we've spent so much of our lives just kind of numbing down the feelings that make us feel a certain type of way. And so I think in my experience, again, with focusing was, you know, the more sessions that I did, and it's probably worth also saying I've done focusing sessions with you. I've also been a student of yours, and I've also acted as a companion as well, which is another really quite profound way of experiencing focusing, being with somebody whilst they're sort of going through that journey is quite amazing to see. And you get better at it, you know, you do.
Absolutely.
You know, the first few sessions, as I said, I was like, oh, there's what's in there? There's nothing there. But then you do. And it can be things that don't seem like it's anything. And so it would be easy to ignore them. In fact, you spend your life ignoring them. But then even if it's just, you know, a physical sensation, like feel something in my neck, in my shoulder, and then you focus on that and you know, really come into relationship with that, there's so many levels to it because, you know, just actually giving your undivided attention to yourself for that amount of time, you do kind of form that bond and you do kind of start to unpack what's kind of going on inside, and it forces you to slow down, which is something that I think we all absolutely need to do more of, because this crazy fast-paced life that we have been living, which has kind of come to a screeching halt over the last 18 months, I think we're just in a state of dysregulation and we're not really sure how to be anymore.
Yeah. And, you know, I can speak from my own personal experience that, you know, having the ability to focus and also having a regular practice with my own companions, my own focusing companions, and being a focusing companion to others has given me, you know, a greater ability to listen to others and also to myself, and to be with what might not be so comfortable, to be with what feels good, and to really invite my body to take that in as much as my body would like. And going back to Brené Brown and what she's had to say, I've really learned how to fully embrace joy. And I don't think I really ever knew how to do that before. So, you know, focusing is not just a way of listening to what might be uncomfortable, but it's also a way of taking in what feels good and really allowing that to be a whole body experience. And, you know, once your body knows that you're listening, the story inside you just starts to unfold. And it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Just enables you to kind of have that enhanced experience, I guess. And I'm just going to pick up on something that you mentioned earlier about safety and creating a safe space. And I know that, you know, it's one of the kind of main principles of focusing is that you are creating a space of safety to be able to go in and have and build these connections. Can you just talk to us a little bit about safety and the importance of it?
Yeah. So I think one of the primary needs of a human is to feel safe. And, you know, that's right up there in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when we feel safe, we're more willing to connect to ourselves, to connect to others. And, you know, even as infants, safety is so important. You know, it's the way that our caregivers can make us feel like we belong, and feeling safe allows us to have an enhanced development, and it allows us to grow and to thrive.
It's actually fascinating. So I've been reading The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and the parallels that I've been drawing between focusing and between the work that he does is quite fascinating. He speaks a lot about safety, and actually feeling safe is like the single most important aspect of our mental health. This research has been proven, you know, and it's something that I think everybody just needs to be sort of a bit more aware of. And if anyone hasn't read that book, then I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's almost a bit of a Bible.
Absolutely.
And, you know, look, there are many ways to cultivate safety, you know, connecting with others. And also, I suppose, within a focusing session, and perhaps I'm preempting something that you wanted to ask here, I'm not sure.
You go with it, Mish.
But, you know, cultivating safety is so important because it's almost like the felt sense or the shy animal within us won't emerge unless the conditions for feeling safe are there. And so, you know, how does that happen? Because safety is not a given for everybody. And I can speak for myself because I didn't know what it felt to feel safe in my own body, you know, until maybe about 5 years ago. And because it was so unfamiliar to my system. I was like, oh, what is this? And I was really unsure about it. So, a way to be able to cultivate safety, and a way that I like to work, is by working from the outside in. So working, with body movement, very slow and gentle body movement, working with things like humming or, just holding, certain areas in your body, essentially working to stimulate the vagus nerve, to create a regulating response within the nervous system, which is felt in the body and also felt in the mind, felt throughout the whole being. And once someone feels safe enough, then we can start to think about maybe gently inquiring about going within. So it's a very slow process. We're not moving quickly. We're not deep diving. We're just checking in and saying, would it be okay to touch inside? And if it is, then we go very slowly. If it's not, then we stop. And we do some more things to create a sense of safety. Because at the end of the day, focusing is about cultivating safety and building a person's capacity to feel safe. And when we can feel safe, then we're able to connect with ourselves and we're able to connect with others.
I think part of the problem is that we don't necessarily know what it is to be safe or how true kind of safety feels, especially those that have kind of experienced traumas. And in the book, The Body Keeps the Score, Bessel van der Kolk basically kind of says how trauma just lives in your body. So every time that something that happens that triggers you, it's as though you're right back there where you were when the traumatic event happened. And so that just lives in your body. And so this is why something like focusing, which is that kind of real gentle coming into relationship with your body, can be really powerful, because it's not like you're being triggered every time you come into relationship with your body, but it's actually going there and sort of healing it bit by bit and at the pace that your own body wants to and feels is right. Yeah. And he's got a number of case studies in his book where he's used similar techniques, and, he's really had some quite significant results from his methodology.
Well, I actually have one of his quotes on my website.
I'd love
and
to
it
hear
says, if you have a comfortable connection with your inner sensations, if you can trust them to give you accurate information, you will feel in charge of your body, your feelings, and yourself.
It's powerful.
Very. And, to your point of working slowly, one of the, I suppose, phrases that I like to quote of Eugene Gendlin's is, we can only move as fast as the body's slowest part.
Can you unpack that a little bit for us, Mish?
So let's talk about thinking for a moment. Thinking is a very quick process. It can happen at lightning speed. The body, on the other hand, needs time. It needs time and it needs space. So let's say that we're touching in a focusing session to something that's here, and you notice that I'm not sure about this, or that, there's something else here that feels a little bit worried about proceeding with what you've been noticing in your body. We invite the part that's worried or not sure to be here too. And we allow this part to be heard and to be welcomed. And we spend some time, just seeing how this part would like us to be with it. So we're not steamrolling ahead with what we were being with before, but we're just slowing things down and inviting the part that's worried to have a bit of airtime. So we're not moving too quickly, and we're just inviting whatever's here just to be here. And we're moving at the pace that our body feels comfortable to move in. I think, if you are looking to build a relationship, a more intimate relationship with yourself, if you are looking at doing some work that doesn't involve a heavy reliance on talk therapy, you might want to try focusing.
That's a very modest way of putting it, Mish, and I probably can vouch for it very much so, having worked with you in the past and, knowing the profound impacts that focusing can have. And I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you, because I feel like focusing is something that not too many people are aware of. And it's something that we kind of know on some level that we want to live authentically. We want to kind of get to the essence of who we are, and we want to kind of live the best quality of life that we possibly can. But we're not always given the tools, and we're not always given the resources. It's just a lot of kind of, motherhood statements about get to know who you are. You need to be authentically yourself, all of this stuff. And we're like, yeah, okay, how do we do that? And I think for me, focusing has been a fantastic way of approaching that, and just learning what's happening inside and how that relates to other things that are happening, and that kind of real reconciliation of the mind and body. And also just the slowing down. That's been a huge one for me, Mish. Anything that can help me to kind of put the brakes on a little bit is very welcome in my life. And focusing is a great way of doing that. And, having a companion to go on that journey with is something quite special. And I'm very grateful to you for having brought it into my life. So thank you very much, Michelle.
Pleasure.
And that leads us on to the next little part of the show, where I've just got a few questions that I'm going to fire at you, and I want you to answer them in a sentence or a word, or just, do you know what? Let's not be so prescriptive. Just answer it however the hell you want. Okay, so first question is, what is the best and worst advice you had been given?
Okay, so the best advice I've been given is that it is possible to reshape your nervous system.
The worst
would be that, when I had my chronic fatigue diagnosis, was that essentially there's nothing I can do to help myself.
And what's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
That really not to be so hard on myself, and just to know that, in whatever situation, that I'm doing my best. And that's going to look different every single day. And that's been very helpful advice, especially during this last while we've been, in lockdown, and, things haven't been so easy.
Have you read the 4 Agreements, Mish?
Yes, I have.
Yes. Yeah. No, there's some good little rules to live life by in that. Okay, so what does your daily well-being routine look like?
So I don't have a fixed routine, but I do have loose goals around what my well-being routine looks like. And that involves movement, curiosity, creativity, and connection.
Beautiful. Who or what inspires you the most?
Yeah, that's a hard one to answer, because there's a lot of things that inspire me. But I think nature really inspires me. And, being able to slow down enough to notice, the changes in nature, and, notice the birds, notice the flowers, notice the sun on my face, all those things.
Yeah, gorgeous. And finally, what does being mean to you?
Yeah, I'm just taking that in. Being means slowing down and accepting whatever comes and just letting it know that it's okay for it to be here, which is, very much a focusing principle.
What a lovely way to round out the show. You're a pro, Michelle. And that just about brings us to the end of the show. If anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about focusing, where can they find you, Mish?
So you can find me by looking on my website, which is www.flowingenergy.com.au, or you can find me on socials. So Instagram, michelle.sacchetti.wellbeing.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I will pop all of those in the show notes. But Michelle, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being my guinea pig, my first ever guest on the Being Guide. It's been an experience. So thank you so much.
And for me too, my first time also.
It's a day of firsts for the both of us. Well, look, I very much look forward to being able to see you in the flesh soon, I hope.
Too.
And we'll be in touch. All right. Lots of love.
Same to you. Take care. Go well.
Take care, Michelle.